Hello guys, CA Pratik Neve this side. Let us do revision of time of supply. Time of supply of goods as well as services covered in section 12 and section 13 of CGST Act. Of course, section 14 is also there, but that is kept at your final level. So revising only 12 and 13. Both 12 and 13 have 6 subsections each. One is introduction, two is forward charge mechanism, three reverse charge mechanism, four vouchers, five residuary, and six when additional consideration is received in the form of interest, penalty, late fees. So in subsection 2 of section 12, that is time of supply and forward charge mechanism, it is earlier of date of issue of invoice or the last date when invoice should have been issued. Now, what is the last date when invoice should have been issued? This is discussed in section 31, which is about tax invoice. So, in section 31, it is said that if supply involves movement of goods, then please issue the invoice before or at the time of removal of goods. In any other case, that is, if supply is not involving movement of goods, then when you are making the goods available to the recipient. Okay, so very important point that I have to remember in 12.2 is that don't consider when the payment is received. Receipt of payment doesn't matter in section 12, subsection 2. This is specially given by one notification which is 66 by 2017 CT. Now coming to 13.2. What is 13.2? 13.2, how to identify? 13 means time of supply in case of services. 2 means forward charge mechanism. So it is earlier of 2. But point is there are two situations. Situation 1, invoice is issued within time. Situation 2, invoice is not issued within time. But sir, what is the time limit for issuing the invoice? So it is given again in section 31, but section 31 says go to the rules and check. So rule says that time limit given is 30 days. And in case of banking service or any other financial service, it will be 45 days from the date of provision of service. So now in case invoice is issued within time, then time of supply will be date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. But if invoice is not issued within time, then the date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Question here is, what is the date of receipt of payment? So that date of receipt of payment is date of entry of this receipt in the books of supplier or the date of credit in his bank account, whichever is earlier. One thing I should understand is in this 13.2, there can be multiple time of supplies in a single transaction. Why? Because I can give service to your institution, but I may demand advance. So if I demand advance as a supplier, I will receive payment beforehand only. So that will be one time of supply. When I receive balance payment, that will be second time of supply. So in main batch, we have seen example of banquet hall. So what happened in banquet hall? That banquet hall received some advance. So when it received the advance, the first time of supply was the date of receipt of that advance. And second time of supply was when the balance amount is received or date of issue of invoice. Okay, so that's what you should keep in mind. 13.2 has got proviso also. No shortcut in revision. We should revise provisos also. What is proviso to this 13.2? If a supplier of service is receiving an excess amount, an advance up to rupees 1000 against an invoice, then for this advance, which I will call it as petty advance, the time of supply at the option of supplier may be taken as date of issue of invoice in which such advance will be adjusted. Okay, then going to 12.3. What is 12.3? Very simple. 12 means time of supply of goods. Subsection 3 means in case of reverse charge mechanism. Earlier of 3. What 3? Date of receiving the goods, date of making the payment by recipient of supply to the supplier, or the date immediately following 30 days from the date of invoice. So every point here I am thinking from perspective of recipient of supply. So what is the date of making payment? So date of making payment will be earlier of 2. Date of entry of payment in books of accounts of recipient of supply, or date of debit in his bank account, whichever is earlier. Then going to 13.3. 13.3, of course, time of supply of services in case of reverse charge mechanism. What it shall be? Earlier of 2. Date of making the payment to the supplier by recipient of supply, or the date immediately following 60 days from the date of invoice. Clear? There is a proviso in this. In 13.3, there is a proviso. If a service is received from associated enterprise located outside India, then time of supply will be the date of making payment by recipient of supply to the supplier, or date of entry, mind you students, entry of expense in the books of accounts of recipient of supply. Of course, whichever is earlier. Then comes subsection 4. But subsection 4 of section 12 and 13 we can revise together for 12 and 13 because principle is common. It is time of supply of vouchers. Vouchers, when vouchers are sold, when vouchers are issued, at that time if supplier identifies what is the supply he is going to do. That means if supply is identifiable at the time of issue of vouchers, then the time of supply is date of issue of vouchers. If supply is not identifiable at the time of issue of voucher, then the date of redemption of vouchers. Subsection 5, residuary. Residuary means two possibilities. One possibility, you are supposed to file the GST return. So, by the way, in residual, which cases are covered? Those which cannot be covered in subsection 2, 3 and 4. What is time of supply? If GST return has to be furnished, then it is due date of filing of such GST return. If GST return is not to be furnished, then the date of actually making the payment. And again, these provisions are common in 12 and 13. Lastly, subsection 6. This is also common for 12 and 13. But of course, in exam while presentation, if it's a interest received for, provision of service, means service you have provided, you are receiving the payment late. So along with that payment, you are receiving interest also. Then you will go to 13.6. If this phenomena is for goods, you will go to 12.6. So what is the time of supply? The date of receiving the payment will be the time of supply for this additional consideration in the form of interest. Okay. So stay tuned. Your mentor CA Pratik Neve signing off. Thank you.